All good parents want to create strong bonds with their teenage kids. It's sometimes a struggle, though, to know exactly how to do it. My next guest says simply trying to understand what teens go through on a regular basis can help improve those relationships. In the final day of our week-long series, Inside Their Brain, we explore what's happening inside a teen's head. David Kowlowski is a therapist and co-creator of the Light the Fight podcast. I am so honored to meet you. We talk about your podcast quite often.
Well, thank you. I'm
honored.
In our
planning meeting, you are really putting forward some awesome information with your co-host, Heidi Swap, a dear friend of ours as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think the conversations you're having about teenagers, the struggles they face, why are they resonating so deeply with people?
Well, I think right now in the society we live in, we realize that it's a growing struggle with teen suicide, depression, anxiety, and everybody wants to know why. And if you've ever been a parent, you know that your most important time in your life is to make sure that you can check that box. I was a good parent.
Yeah.
If your kids don't launch successfully, it's hard to check that box.
We want that check.
We want that check. Yep.
Do you think, I mean, it's always been a struggle, fair to say,
Yeah.
or parents view it as a struggle or a challenge to connect and communicate with their teen.
Yeah.
Is that getting more difficult in this current day and age, in your opinion?
It's definitely getting a lot harder,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, everybody knows social media is a real thing. Phones are really entertaining, a lot more entertaining sometimes than playing a board game at home with your kids. So yes, it's getting much more difficult.
We've asked you today to take us to a scary place. Not really, but inside the teenage brain and help us as parents and as grandparents even know how to better kind of bridge that gap. You say the first thing to recognize is that when we are firing off questions to these kids, that's not the opportunity, that's not the way to get them to open up.
No, it's not at all. I'll give you a quick little background on how this came about. Is when kids are young, their whole entire life, when they hear questions, unfortunately, it's usually associated with like, why did you do that? Why'd you push your brother? How many times do I have to tell you? How come you're not listening to me? How come you do the chores?
It's accusatory.
It's accusatory, where our brain is made to make certain patterns so it doesn't waste so much energy throughout the day so that we can focus on other more important topics. So the brain makes a pattern really early on in life that a question is questioning you, you're in trouble. And when your brain thinks that's the majority of the time you hear a question, then it puts up a signal looking like GPS satellite, questions, questions. If a parent asks a question to start off a conversation, get defensive. If you're a parent, you've ever said, what do you want for dinner? And your kid's like, I don't know. You're like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to make a special dinner for you, sweetheart.
Let me please you.
And then you got to take away their Xbox because they're disrespectful. You know, at least that's what you feel like you have to do. So questions, bad. Statements are very good. When you're young, your brain also puts up a pattern, puts together a pattern. When you're getting compliments, it's like, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're smart. You're beautiful. You did a great job. And so a teen's brain by that time says, wait, there's a statement? This could be good information. Maybe my mom's trying to help me. Maybe I'm going to get a compliment or some sort of bonus in my life. So our brain at that early age thinks questions are bad, statements are good. So I encourage parents to start with statements. Instead of saying, how was your day at school? Say, I don't know how your day was. Looks like you might have a bad day. If you want to talk about it, I'd be happy to hear about it. If not, that's cool too. Mic drop and walk back in the kitchen and wait. They will come to you.
So the statement becomes not just the compliment or the positive approach. It becomes kind of the conduit, if you will.
It's an invitation to talk to them instead of a requirement. If you come home from a hard day, sometimes you don't want to talk about that hard day.
Sure. I like that. I think that alone will open up parents' minds to a different avenue of conversation.
It's a huge concept. I'm just trying to give you a small little topic, a small little tidbit about it, but it's extraordinarily powerful.
I appreciate that. You say if there's one way to kind of send teens into the fetal position, it's to question their social status.
Oh, yeah.
Why is this so important?
Well, not you questioning their social status, but they're constantly questioning their social status. So human beings by nature are tribal. For thousands of years, we survived off a social survival system where if you're close with other people and you work in hard circumstances, you know that everyone in that group is valuable because one person got water, one person hunted. They all did things to add to the family's survival. In today's world, our families take good care of us. So we don't really know that we're valuable to them. We just know that they love us, but we start to focus more, okay, if our parents are a given, our family loves us, they're gonna put up with us no matter what, then they put their focus more on their social survival. So constantly knowing where they're at socially is a way for them to know that they are necessary and they're valuable. If they start to feel like they're not necessarily valuable to their social groups, that's when the panic starts to ensue. And this is not including bullying, because that also does that, but in a much more extreme way.
So how can, as parents, I mean, it's easy for us to eye roll as they're checking Instagram to see how many likes they've gotten in the last hour. How, as parents, can we help validate them through that kind of social navigation?
Well, I believe in informed consent with teenagers. What I mean by that is parents should be developing a parent partnership with their teenagers. So your teenagers are basically semi-professional adults. They don't get paid to be an adult, but they're supposed to be practicing to be an adult.
That's an interesting
So
way
if
to put it.
you're the CEO and they're just the janitor of the family business, they don't feel like there's a partnership. So there's apps out there that can help track and monitor how long you're on your social media. I tell parents, start having conversations about the effects of social media instead of telling them you're on your phone too long, this is ridiculous, stop it. Because no one likes to be told what to do if they don't really have good information why they're doing it. But I share with teenagers, here's some YouTube videos, here's the statistics, here's what's happening. Now, be cautious and be careful how long you're on it. And they seem to respond and they start to self-regulate themselves because ultimately when they're an adult, that's what they're gonna have to do.
We could talk about social media and technology all day long, all the week long. But I'd love to bring you back for a future conversation on that. But as far as the why goes, we set this up by saying it's important to understand why your teen does what they do. Why, in your opinion, are teens turning to their phones so much? Well,
first of all, there's extreme addiction to our technology. It's Dr. Sapolsky out of Stanford. If anyone wants to go to YouTube and look it up, he did a lot of research on this, and there's something called the maybe. Most people call it FOMO, right? And so what the maybe is we would think that if we get a notification on our phone that our brain goes, oh, someone might be talking about us, someone might be talking about us bad or good. And so our brain at that particular moment when we get a notification, it has a hit of dopamine. We get drugs before we see the funny meme. Before we actually go to the social media site, our brain starts producing dopamine and makes us feel, oh my gosh, there's something exciting happening. So the maybe comes in the fact where you get addicted more to your phone, just like in pulling a slot machine. You become addicted to the slots, not because you win every time, but maybe you might win because you've won before.
It's the chance.
And so there is the addiction part of it, but the other half of that I would definitely say is the social tribalization. If you are outside of your tribe or if you're losing your status, you're in serious danger because everybody knows the most important thing in school is not schoolwork. It should be, but not to the teenagers. It's how are you supposed to pay attention in algebra if kids are bullying you online? I mean, you're panicking, so you're always checking the phone to see where your status is at and also to get the fix and the hit of the drug. Unfortunately, it's a drug that has not been monitored because it's produced inside of our body. So it's not like there's a statute of limitations, like you have to be this old before we'll let you have this and anyone can monitor that. So it's a lot more loose of an expectation of our teenagers to not be on their phone, when in reality it's a very addictive thing by being on their phone.
One more thought I want to ask you about a minute left. You say a teenager's biggest fear is not being needed, and you're really pushing parents to get to the core of that fear in pursuit of understanding.
Well, put it this way, like I said earlier, if you're a teenager, not if you're a teenager, but when you're a teenager and everything is provided for you in your life, you don't have to worry about the 4 core needs: food, water, and shelter. If 3 of them are taken care of, you only have to worry about love, which is acceptance. So if you have some sort of validation that you're necessary, you can take a deep breath and you can focus on all the other things you want in your life. But what do teenagers do today on a day-to-day basis to make them necessary to their families? Teenagers really don't do anything for their family's survival, which is why they're struggling. I tell parents all the time, they say, why is my kid struggling? Self-harm, depression, anxiety, all these horrible things. I said, the reason why your kid's struggling is because they don't have enough purposeful struggle. In the old days, you had to go get water and come back and everybody's thankful. Now it's like, oh, Mom, I didn't totally, clean up the dishes, but I cleaned up a couple. You're not really helping your family.
So the focus goes on to that acceptance.
Yeah, so I'm always telling parents, try to give your kids very purposeful reasons to struggle because they're struggling throughout the day, but it's kind of not real struggle. It's struggle inside their own individual world, but it's not a struggle that has a return on the investment.
This is invaluable beyond words. Thank you so much. A pleasure to meet you. You're doing great things on your podcast. How can we listen in?
Light the Fight podcast on iTunes. Anywhere you like to listen to podcasts, you can go to lightthefight.com. Instagram on all social media, Light the Fight, and that's L-I-G-H-T.
This podcast getting worldwide rankings. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's doing pretty good.
Amazing.
We're happy.
I know you're working to cultivate some events as well, so I know details.
Yeah, we got a workshop in 2 weekends for optimizing your influence as a parent. Most parents have no idea how much power they have over their kids.
Awesome. We'll continue to listen in. Thank you for chiming in today.